Hello and welcome to the shop. I'm Jared and this is the Questionable Garage, and you guys have been asking for it. You have been wanting to see me work on something Toyota for a while. Now, if you're not familiar, despite all of the Mopars, the two over there, this big green one here, I cut my teeth on Toyotas, ran and built a tremendous number of Toyota Supras, and you guys like learning a little bit of the Toyota history and knowledge from me, and that is what we're doing today. It's going to be a very different way in the sense of how we're working on a Toyota. Pretty much, there's a particular part on Toyotas. Part goes bad, you throw it away and put a new one on. Sometimes it's worth reconditioning, and sometimes it's mandatory that you're going to have to recondition the part because you cannot buy this part new anymore. They've quit selling it. So when these parts go bad, people are forced to do a whole lot of weird conversions and band-aids to make the car run, but Toyota still does offer the parts you need to be able to rebuild this. So I'm really excited to be able to go through and get working on this. Let me show you what it is. I had it in one of these. No, those are my Hellcat supercharger parts. Oh, here it is. Boom. Look at that. This is one of the most confusing water pumps you'll see in the modern era. And what exactly this is off of a 1JZ or 2JZ Supra motor, Lexus GS motor, Soarer motor that runs the hydro fans. So not only is it moving the coolant to cool the engine, it also has a hydraulic oil pump in it that runs hydraulics to run the cooling fan. So it's a very important pump. It cools two different systems. Some might say it's it's pretty cool because it cools things. Cool. But I'm not building this one for me. We're building this for Nathan, who bought the twin turbo R Supra from me. This is a 30-year Toyota, and there are some quirks about, the early 90s, Japanese cars. I did warn you that, right?
Yeah, but I mean, dude, it's a Supra.
I'm really happy he's gotten it because he's taking care of it the same way I wanted to. Restoring it, preserving it, and keeping it as correct as possible. A twin turbo R Toyota Supra is a very, very special thing. So we're going to go through the process. We're going to get this thing stripped down. I'm going to show you how you can safely bead blast and clean pump parts. Normally you never want to use a sandblast or anything like that, but there are certain ways we can media blast these parts. We're going to recondition it to new, and then we'll get it sent out so we can help get something back on the road. Hopefully it's going to be fun for you guys to watch, learn a couple techniques on how you can recondition parts. So let's grab some parts real quick. These are my 2-year-old Brunt work boots, and I'm really excited to share these with you and share the fact that they're today's sponsor. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about the Brunt workwear line and why I'm really impressed with it. That's right, Brunt Workwear. You might have heard of them. They are popping up and kind of taking over as a great, affordable, high-quality boot. And quite frankly, they're the type of company I love working with because before we ever did any official partnership, they sent me some of their product to try and use, and that is a company that believes they have something good to offer. I've not been kind to these. They've been covered in paint, I've cleaned them with gasoline, I've never oiled or conditioned, and they've also handled a Great Pyrenees puppy quite well. They survive Magni chewing on them. All that to say, if you're looking for some great quality workwear that is oil resistant, slip resistant, most of the line is waterproof and water resistant, you're gonna find it in the Brunt workwear. They now have sizes up to 16 EE, which works well for my giant feet. They are incredibly comfortable. They are a boot that I love wearing, and I'm confident you're gonna love wearing them too. And they are also so confident that everything has a risk-free trial. If you get them and they just don't work for you, you're able to return them. Now, Brunt was founded to give comfortable footwear to people in trade. The founder, after watching several of his friends in their different trades having to work in these big, clunky, uncomfortable boots, they buy something new that takes a month to finally break in and actually wear well. He wanted to do something about it. And what's unique is each boot is tailored to excel in different trades, and that boot carries the name of someone from that trade that gave feedback to make sure it was the best possible boot for the trade. I really always work hard to share something that I am comfortable using, and I really hope by looking at these boots, you understand I am very comfortable using these boots. I've had these for 2 years. I wear them, I use them, it's visible, and I'm excited to get these on my feet and start getting those worn in and weathered a little bit more, because new boots are nice, but worked in boots tell a story. So if you're ready to go ahead and get a pair of boots that will tell a great story for you and all the work that you are doing, you can get $10 off your first purchase by heading over to bruntworkwear.com/questionable10. That's bruntworkwear.com/questionable10 and use code questionable10. Links down in the description box below. All right, let's get back to building that water pump. All right, so obviously we need to get this thing torn apart, and it is not something that you work on frequently. So we're gonna do one of those really simple tricks that as we start to take it apart, we have a piece of cardboard and a Sharpie to go ahead and draw the shape, and we're gonna punch holes and put the bolts in a hole so it's easier to match up, just so we know it goes back correctly. We're trying to do a restoration, not a modification. Now, if you're gonna rip apart one of these water pumps, a typical Toyota, you need a 10mm, 12mm, 14 and 17mm socket, 27mm wrench or socket, and a 32mm wrench or giant crescent wrench, along with a 4mm and 5mm Allens, if I remember correctly. And I didn't. A 5mm and a 6mm Allen. So let's get started. Knock off our pulley first. Hopefully it's a quick, easy one. We'll see. I don't know how tapered or easy. Thank you, Toyota, for being good. It's just like their power steering pumps. They come right off. Now, we are going to blast and clean this thing, but we're going to show you something specific, at least what I do whenever we're doing pulleys, when it's time to paint and clean that. What is unique about this is it's not just a water pump. Your water pump assembly is back here. Here is quite simply a powered steering pump. It operates very close to that, and it achieves that relative goal. Now, what we'll go ahead and do is kind of draw our shape. Good thing I'm a great artist here. You kind of have, you know, a bump. Comes around here. Good thing it's not quite like a 4-cylinder Tacoma water pump gasket. I probably should have drawn this a whole lot bigger, but we'll make this work. So we have a small bolt here, a small bolt here, a bigger bolt here, bigger bolt here, bigger bolt here, bigger bolt about there, small bolt here, and a small bolt over here. And that will cover all of those pretty simply. I'm gonna grab something and poke some holes. I'll be right back. So we'll start with our 10 mils. We'll get this one. This should be a little bit longer. Now, if you're taking something apart you're not familiar with, what's your preferred method of organization? Do you just chuck it all into one bucket? Do you like to organize them in a particular way? Picture and then a bucket? I'm kind of normally with anything 2J or J series, I can throw it all in a bucket. I had someone challenge me once and they were like pulling out bolts and they're like, where does that go? Sometimes memories work that way about particular things. Pop off our oil feed here. Just keep that bolt with the bracket. Now this is one we won't need to do any cleaning to. It's pretty nice. Appreciate what Nathan did too. Rather than tear the car down and, you know, basically leave it apart for a while, he ordered technically a good pump he could have just thrown on there. Good used pump. Again, these aren't available new. Instead, we get to rebuild something that's a little bit cleaner, a little less leaky. Ow. Nice and simple. We start to come apart. I gotta say, universally, a tool you'll never regret spending money on is good snap ring pliers. Nothing is more frustrating than snap rings when you're trying to get them apart with not the best pliers. Come on, you little buggers. Alright, maybe some straight ones will do it a little better. Nothing's better than spending money on good snap ring pliers. Come on now. Nothing's better than spending money on good snap ring pliers. Nothing's better than spending money on really good expensive tools, because they make snap rings work so much better. Nothing is... Okay, come on, guys. Okay, take a second. Breathe. You guys, I should not need to pry this out, but nothing's better than good quality tools made in the USA by Snap-on, because they just come right out and they don't give you any trouble. Am I just gonna go get the really cheap ones and they have these come right out? Okay, we're gonna succeed. So now we're gonna try the pinch. Get a. These were the Crisfix printing came off of them, but I got a set of the mini Crisfix pry bars, and they are quite nice. I hate doing this because it makes them tend to want to fly when you get in behind them and walk them out, but I don't get it. What else do you want from me? Alright, it's coming up now, maybe. I don't know, guys. Sometimes cars, they just suck. Holy moly me. Maybe I forgot the shaft connecting bolt. There we go. We're at least disconnected from the back housing now. There's the back housing of your water pump. Now, what's pretty common, at least on these when you're doing aftermarket water pumps on the JZs, not even anything to do with the hydro pumps, is you change out just a front section of a pump, which isn't a bad idea. It's a few less bolts, little bit less work, but I am a fan whenever possible to just go ahead and replace an entire housing front and back. But this looks quite clean, but we'll make it even better. But for now, back to this confusing mess. Let's remove a housing. Come back and help out for a second. Reverse thread. Don't be shy, come on off. You can do it. I mean, this is why people just replace stuff, because all the little fidgety things, they take time, especially when you're production. Time's money. I get it. Well, all right. We'll give you a second to think about what you're doing. Bye, bolts. So that's in there pretty good. We're just doing swell today. The good news is the impeller's plastic, so you have to be very careful with it. Don't ever get too aggressive. Come on now. Nice and easy. There we go. Gotta love Loctite. Ooh. Let's get back in frame. Whew. Well, good news is that didn't reveal anything useful. I remember this being the hardest and most difficult part of the process. I just forgot what I did to magically make it work. Step one, let's try a, nope, that won't work. I'm gonna try a window clip remover. How are you just being such a little bear? All I can think of is just in the center, that shaft's mushroomed the tiniest bit down, and if it won't come off, we're kind of stuck for a moment. What I'm trying to do is give it a little bit of pressure to push out onto the threads, turn it with the pulley. So if that's what it is fighting, it might eventually catch and start to work its way off for us. Come on. It's come out the smallest margin. We're definitely far from success yet. Ideally, you'd apply some heat to the metal insert to make it grow so you can easily pull it off the threads. It's a plastic nylon impeller. If we apply heat, we risk the bond on the hub, which can then ruin the part. Alright, let me get a small nylon hammer. We're going to do some taps. I honestly don't know if I'm making progress or not. The main thing is just working as gently as you can. It's tempting to put heat on this. Trust me. A little bit of heat would make it come right up, but you're gonna damage one of the parts you can't get. So we're doing all our best to be as gentle as possible. I'm gonna pause everything, step away for a second, come up with a new game plan, compose my thoughts. We'll pick this back up. When you're working on stuff, you can't just go out to the store and buy. You have to be careful at times. And remember, don't just get angry and force it. I did some thinking and some working off camera trying to get that water pump impeller off. I've got good news. I got it off in pieces. The good news, thanks to the Heritage program, not only are you able to get the full rebuild kit, just go ahead and order one of those. It's about $7.11. Shipping, maybe a bit more, but if you're getting it with other parts, not a big deal. But that did finally come off, and our shaft here, this is gonna need, again, a little bit of polish. That is where your seals ride. This is a spring seal, and what's most common when you start to see these water pumps leak is this has totally failed. But we will need to drive this out, and then we're gonna clean and polish all of this. So part of something we're gonna do to improve, it's not necessarily required, but we're gonna come in and just gently polish and remove all of these imperfections. Make it nice and smooth throughout all of this area. Also, here is our oil pump half inside. This has a seal that when you remove, make sure you don't mar the outside. It pops out really easy. It's not a lot of pressure. And when it goes back in, it sits down. So what would be your outside of the seal, that section, does go down, and that's what keeps your oil from mixing with your coolant. And that sets us up to drive out this part. We'll show that when we go to put it together. So next, we're gonna set up the other cameras, start moving and taking down this part of the assembly. Now, I will say 90% of the issues, you're gonna just need to replace those rear seals, but we're redoing the entire pump. We're fully cleaning it and reconditioning it like new, including cleaning the outside metals. We're doing a whole lot of really cool stuff. It's just, you know, just order one of these. Make your life a lot easier. I will have all of the part numbers in the description for the rebuild kits in case you did have one of these hydro pumps and you're not just watching around and enjoying someone work on all these little bits and pieces. If you're looking to try to do this yourself, it'll be a little bit easier to find. You put those in. There's a couple different international parts houses that you can get them from. Currently, they're not readily available in the US, or the people you can buy them from are charging way too much. Plan ahead, order them from overseas, and not need to pay their 400% markup. I can have that impeller here in a couple days for $70, or we can wait just a little bit and get it for $7. So next is basically the power steering pump side. We need to pull this apart and get ready to get all of this apart so it can be cleaned and built back. Again, you can go as simple as just doing seals and O-rings, but we're trying to fully, as much as possible, recondition this, bearings, everything. Now, one thing you'll notice, as you take this apart, there is a pin that helps locate. That pin can pull all the way out, and it does key into a specific spot in this housing. Also, just because of the design of it, I have a little container to catch all the little pieces. So, we get her to tilt back. We want to be gentle pulling this out. There we go. You've got a spring preloaded washer, and inside here is your traditional vane style pump that we're going to do our best not to disassemble this little section of it, just because you can get them a little bit wrong, and if you get them a little bit wrong, nothing works right. So this all does key together, and when you slide it back in, that shaft does have a key. So remember how this came out, was this direction. We don't have the ability to replace those small vanes, and this was producing hydraulic pressure. So that is one thing where we will take a small little step back from. We've got our O-ring seal. Now again, most common leaks are that little carbon seal that we had break apart behind the impeller, and you get a water pump leak that comes out the wee pole right here, or you'll have an oil leak, and it's most common just this O-ring. But again, why stop at a minimalistic repair when we can replace everything, get this housing fully stripped down, and clean it so it's nice and trouble-free as long as possible. Now, I did break this loose off camera. This is the pressure control valve. I have not found a ready source for it, but also I don't think I've ever seen one of these go bad. And inside there, it just sits. That plunger will open and close, create a bypass. Next, we'll hit our little clack gun that goes to our pressure regulator here. Take that off, and underneath there, we're gonna have a spring pressure regulator set up. So this pushes, this rod just simply pushes down against inside here, which is a shuttle valve and spring to bypass pressure. So when it starts getting to have too much hydraulic pressure, just like your power steering pump if you're at full lock, it will bypass the system and not overload it. That bearing itself, it does feel good, but again, we've got it. So let's change it. Let me go grab the hammer again. Now what's really cool about this, the fact that we have this seal kit and we can get the impeller, is a lot like what Nissan was doing. Toyota has created their heritage parts division. So all of these discontinued parts, ooh, you're able to get again. May have to go to the vise and tap that out. I'll be back 1 second with a little more taps. Again, don't use solid hammers on this because you'll ruin your threads. Alrighty, so we got that to come out. You have your cone washer spacer. The bearing is still on the shaft. And then you have your front pump seal. So now that we got it apart, it is time to go ahead and get these things cleaned up, spick and span, looking as new as possible, and we can reassemble it. Guys, you may be asking, how did I get these parts so clean? It's really easy. First, take it off the hood of your Ram Charger, put it on the hood of the Duster, and you're done. Good as new. Or you actually go through all the steps that you need to. First, run it through the ultrasonic cleaner. Then, you put it in your blast cabinet. You then discover that your soda blast material isn't quite cutting it. Take a road trip to go get some new media. Change out the media in your blast cabinet. Find out your new media isn't gonna quite cut it either. Take another road trip to get some more media. Change out the media once again. Finally, successfully get everything blasted clean. Clean them in the ultrasonic one more time, and then you're done. So now that you're caught up on our clean parts, we're gonna be able to start putting this all back together. Now I am just, I'm a little bummed because we're not gonna have it finalized, because despite my best efforts, I could not overnight an impeller from Japan in time for us to get this thing together. But we're gonna be able to get the oil pump fully assembled and know this is coming, which means we're going to hopefully, unless something I've not seen, fully resurrect this part and keep a Supra on the road. Now, anytime you blast parts, you'll see during my fun little, time lapse there or skit, I was hoping to use walnut shells. That is my go-to, either soda blasting or walnut shells whenever you're dealing with a hydraulic pump. Any type of grit left behind can be catastrophic. So whenever I finish blasting, especially if I end up into the glass beads, I'll run it through the ultrasonic and give it a lot of rinse. If you guys want to join the Wellworth family, code's down below. You save, I think it's 10% still on your first purchase, and it's some of my favorite shop chemicals I've ever used. Appreciate Wellworth and all their support. I believe it's TQG10. Dwayne will put it up because he's smarter than I am. So we are going to start with our pump housing assembly. Before we worry about building out the hydraulic controls, we're just going to go ahead and get the shaft set in, the seals set in. So first step is we drive in our oil seal, same direction that it came out. Now it's tempting. This is the same with crank seals, cam seals, rear main seals. Any type of oil seal, when they have a lip, you kind of instinctively want to drive it all the way to the very bottom. You need to look at the hole you're putting it into. This has a drain back that if we took the seal and shoved it all the way down, it would block the oil's ability to drain out and bypass, because no matter what, some oil can get in a few spots that you don't necessarily exactly want it. And if you lock all of the ability for it to drain out, it will blow your seals out and cause an oil leak. So anytime you're getting ready to drive a seal into a hole, see if there's a small drain orifice and make sure you don't cover it. So we've got that seal in. We've got our parts diagram to make sure everything's good. One thing I did is drive our new bearing on and get our new lock in place. It has its spacer shim. So we'll be able to get this thing slid into place, get our spacer in place, and see, we might have to actually give her a little tappy tap to get down. Also, once this goes in, we can go ahead and put that snap ring on that, behaves so well in the beginning. Biggest thing is just don't ever get too aggressive, too much force as you're putting the stuff together. I know I dropped a socket that would be useful right now. Goodbye, audio. Wondering if heating the housing might make life a little easier for me. It is just not cooperating. But again, I cannot stress, be gentle. Anytime you're working with things you're trying to be delicate with, brass, aluminum, soft metals are really good to use for drifts and punches. Seal, you want to check and make sure that's doing good. This is just one of those processes. You need to know the right amount of force. You're going to have to apply some. Absolutely. But you don't want to apply too much. And that socket fell once again. Again, checking our seal. Make sure we drop in enough. And I believe we are ready to put in our snap ring. I wonder if it's going to go any better, if we're going to be just as confused and irritated at it. Fingers crossed, right? Now, I'm actually really excited to see Toyota jumping on board with the Heritage style programs where they're bringing back parts that have been discontinued to allow us to keep these things going in service. Because it used to be, again, like we talked earlier, your only repair option was to eliminate the hydro system, which I'm not going to say is a good or bad thing. It is a cool system and unique to the car, and I kind of feel like it's important, especially as these cars are becoming collectible, you know, to preserve them as much as possible. So next step, we're going to install this assembly. Now, what I will do, because we talked about how this worked very, very briefly, and you will want to inspect this. This is a vane style pump, very, very similar to a power steering pump, because that is effectively what it is. And as it spins, centrifugal force pulls these metal flaps out. That's what moves the oil and creates the pressure. So you want to make sure there's no excessive tolerance, no excessive wear. Everything looks pretty good and happy there. When you go to put this cover back on, inspect your bushing. Everything in here is very good and clean. This has two dowels, one for the pass-through, so it can only go on one way, and then it lines up on the opposite side. This lined up. Okay, now we're just doing a couple test turns, making sure nothing's bound. This pin appears to be protruded correctly. It's not spinning. So all of that indicates we landed it correctly. Now we don't have the O-rings yet on here. We're just going to do a dry fit. We still have an O-ring and a seal to do. And that's actually telling me we've not dropped in all the way just yet. So what's the story of a part that you guys were able to save? Something discontinued, but you figured out a way to rebuild it, save it, to keep one of your projects going. I love the ingenuity of the determined enthusiast. I know this shaft's right, but for some reason, we're coming up short. Working slow, making sure I don't screw this up. Oh no. Well, now we get fun. It's coming all the way apart on us. And that's the problem. She's not going in quite as deep as she should. It's like something's going on with our O-rings. Oh yeah, we are so far from her actually sitting down. So this is another key of just sometimes take your time. You cannot force these things. Might have to get a little percussive with it, which not ideal, but sometimes if I can find a deep enough socket to just apply even pressure. Alright, now the fun. Repacking one of these. Use fun very loosely. Hopefully. That looks like she dropped down enough. I think we're back in business, guys. Just need our O-rings, I believe. Yep, there we go. Whew. So now, we'll pop her back off, put in our O-rings and our seals, and we're back in business. It is very tempting when you run into a problem and you just send it. Sometimes slowing down and assessing is the best course of action. I guess wisdom comes from knowing when to send it and when to slow down and assess. It's funny, it is literally just a water pump slash hydraulic pump slash nightmare. We still got to get that together, paint a pulley, build out our hydraulic controls. Like it is such a simple thing that takes a whole lot of steps. Every pump's different, every seal's different. Slide this back together. We'll get our big bolts in, and then I'm going to go ahead and fix the audio recorder that's now in pieces on the ground and put a fresh battery in her GoPro. Well, here it is. It is all together, ready to hopefully go onto that Supra and get it back down the road. Very different episode. We're not working directly on a car. We had a Ram Charger. Now we've got a Duster behind us that just ran the Southern Classic and placed 5th in. I get it. We do a little bit of everything. And I was happy to put some of my Toyota knowledge to use because it is so easy to just look at something and go the easy route. You put a modern non-hydro fan pump on the car, you rewire the whole thing, you put electric fans, and you deal with trouble codes in the car because that's somehow easier than getting a bearing kit, getting the impeller. If you're doing this, just order the impeller. It's gonna stick. They're not very expensive. It's $8 whole. You can rebuild it. We can put a little bit of sweat equity into the problem we have rather than just throwing it away and moving on to something else. Life works that way too. Sometimes you're gonna be up against a challenge, relationship, something's gonna be a little bit difficult. Don't just throw it away and move on to the next one. Trust me, sometimes it's easier to go with what you know and work through the things. But we'll get this back to Nathan. He's gonna get it back on that twin turbo R and keep that preserved. I'm happy I sold it to the right person who has the same goals with it that I do. And hopefully you guys are a little bit inspired. Maybe you have an electric hydro pump that you need to get rebuilt, or there's something you've been putting off and realized, hey, sometimes we can just work on one part on the bench. You got big projects, I've got a lot of big projects. Little bits, take as many small steps as you can, because every step forward is getting you closer to that goal of finishing a project or preserving a small piece of history. So hopefully for you Toyota guys, this gave you a little bit of fix on some Supra content. I've got more Toyota stuff coming very soon. I love anything that we can make go. Again, another big thank you to Brunt Workwear for sponsoring this episode. Their boots are great. I'm wearing the hoodie right now, and I've got the work pants that I've been enjoying. So if you want to take a look at Brunt Workwear, link is in the description. You save a little bit on your first order by clicking that, and you help support the channel when you do it. Thank you again to all of our members and patrons. Enjoy chatting with you guys in the Discord. Eventually, once I figure out how to moderate Discord a little bit better, we'll let all of you come in there and members get the special rooms. So, I'm Jared reminding you guys to always make questionable choices, and sometimes they are worth rebuilding and not just throwing away. We'll see you next time.